But I'm going to start out with just kind of walking through the book. So the Lost Tools of Writing is, for those of you who are new, in Challenge A, is just completely different than what they did in Essentials. So in A, B, and 1, they're all reading novels, and CC chooses a wide variety of novels and how they're written differently, different time periods, really to just expand kids' minds. Think about characters' choices and actions and how they affect them, the consequences. So although some of the novels might be difficult for your kids to read, they might be boring, they're good for them to read because we're diving into choices that they make and then processing through that. So the Lost Tools of Writing is teaching our kids how to write a persuasive essay. So with every essay they write, they're doing the exact same steps for everyone, and they're choosing a character, they're choosing an action they made, and they're trying to persuade the reader why they should have done this or should not have done this. So just to get a quick look at your book, for those of you who are new especially, and even if you're not, one thing that might be helpful is to tab it. So this is like your book. So if your kid has trouble, this is very helpful. You can walk them through it. But
do you have the essay numbers on there?
Yep. So on page 35, like that's where essay 1 starts. Now challenge A only goes through essay 6. Challenge B will work through essay 8 or 7.
No, challenge A goes.
We go through 6.
Essay 6. We go through essay 7.
7, and then challenge 1 will go all the way through essay 9. So that takes up the first part of the book. If you flip through some other things that might be helpful to tab for you, on page 267, it starts where it says how to edit. These are just tips that you can go over just to make sure your kid has this information in there. And some of you may not choose to do this, that's totally fine too, especially in A. It's kind of up to you, but the students have this in their student workbook too in the back. So tips of how to edit, what they should kind of have in their essays. The next thing would be assessing, a guide to assessment on page 265. So that just kind of goes through if you are looking to like read through their papers, what to look for, talks about that. Okay, then starting on page 287, essay templates. This could be really handy. This just has, so for every essay, they're going to write an outline. That's like the second step. So this just has all the outlines just written out like that. So that can be helpful. You can just glance at it. Moving on to page 306, there's a glossary. So there's a lot of new terms in here that the students aren't familiar with and you're probably not familiar with. So throughout the lessons, they will learn kind of all these terms and what they are, but there's all of those for you if you just need to a quick glance. If you, like most of us moms and dads, don't have time to like read through the lesson, the next section on page 320 is lesson summaries. So you can read that real quick and kind of get an overview of what they're doing in each step, in each essay. And I think the most helpful one is going to be on page 337. These are sample essays. So for each essay they write, they give you 2 samples. So if you or your child is having trouble, like, does this sound right? Is this kind of supposed to have what it's supposed to sound like or look like? You can just look at these sample essays and it really like is just like that, but with their information. So those can be really helpful. Okay. So those are just some of the main points that might be helpful for you to know where those things are at. Okay, so I'm going to kind of start at the beginning. So for each essay, they will in challenge A, and I think in B, they have 3 weeks to write each one. Is that right? In challenge 1, 2? Okay, so the first week, they're always doing what's called invention, the invention stage, which is gathering thoughts and ideas of what to write about, like what they're going to put in their essay. So that's called invention, and with every invention stage, they're going to make what's called an Annie chart, and it stands for affirmative, negative, and interesting. So after they read the novel, they're going to choose a character and an action they did, a choice they made, and they're going to start making a list. So kind of before they do each one of these, they're going to come up with 3 questions. There's 3 questions that they'll answer. And I think they start with a should question. So like should, now we're going to kind of talk about all these essays. We're going to do an example of all the essays, and our essay is going to be over the story of Esther, okay, in the Bible. So our should question might be, should Esther, what do you guys think? What are some actions that Esther did in her story that produced an outcome?
She fasted.
Okay, she fasted. Well, let me close up here. Okay, what else?
She planned a big meal.
Okay. Okay, one more.
She hid her identity, or her.
Good one.
That's good. That's good.
Okay, so if we read the book of Esther, we're like, okay, these are 3 things she did. Now we're gonna pick one. Like, what's the most, I don't know, intriguing one or consequential one to us that out of these 3? So what would you guys say? Fasted, planned a big meal, or hid her identity? It's all good. Anybody, somebody pick
Hid
one.
her identity.
Okay. All right, so we'll do this one. Okay, so our should question is going to be, should Esther have hid her identity? Okay, so then we're going to brainstorm in our Annie chart. Okay, so should Esther have hid her identity? Well, what were the affirmative or the positive reasons for her doing that?
She got fair treatment in the women's house because they didn't know she was a Jew, so they didn't treat her like a Jew.
Okay. Okay. What's another one?
Wasn't she told to?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So obeyed.
Okay, yeah. Okay, what else?
Maybe safety for her own family.
Okay, maybe we'll think of like 2 more.
God used it.
And there's no wrong answers. And so as your kids are doing this on their own, like that, it's what they think. Okay, so if they're having trouble, of course help them. But remember, we're wanting them to kind of dive in and dig into their thoughts about this person and think through that. So there's nothing wrong they can really put on here. Okay, so those are our affirmative reasons for why Esther should have hid her identity. Okay, what would be negative reasons? What would be reasons she shouldn't have?
What if she would have gotten caught?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
It was a lie.
Okay,
Sorry.
ooh, it's getting deep already. What else?
She probably had to, like, pretend.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, she,
Like
not,
deception.
yeah, not just lying, but she had to act differently
Yeah.
probably than she normally would.
Okay. Okay. You want anything else?
She wouldn't have gotten to, well, I guess that's kind of acting really, like she wouldn't have been able to like worship the way that, you know, she was
Mhm.
raised to. But that's kind of like hiding that too. Not that-
She couldn't like participate in her Jewishness.
Yeah, I guess, right?
Yeah. Heritage or
Yeah.
religion.
I feel like it goes both ways because in some ways she would have to participate in things that she would normally think this is maybe like maybe morally compromising or scary for her, and then in other ways she would have to withhold from things that would be spiritually edifying to her. So yeah, I do think it's kind of 2 different things in a sense, you know.
Okay, any other negative reasons? Okay, and then we're gonna do an interesting column. So what in the story of Esther is just interesting? What are some facts or information?
She had to change her name. That's interesting.
The way the king was looking for a wife.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's not really how it is anymore.
I don't know. I see some TV shows that look kind of like that.
That's very true. That's good.
So the interesting doesn't have to just be about that question, it can be about the whole
Yeah,
entire story.
Yeah, exactly. Interesting column can be like anything in the novel, anything in the story that they think is interesting. Anything else?
I think God isn't mentioned in the book of Esther.
Mm-hmm.
Alluded to.
I think we always use the verse, "You're here for such a time as this."
14.
There you go.
Okay, we'll stop there. Okay, so we have our should question, and then they're going to do their Annie chart, okay, thinking of all these reasons, affirmative, negative, and by this point they shouldn't have really, although they probably would have in their mind, they shouldn't have taken their side yet. So we want them to like fill out their Annie chart, look at it, and then we're gonna ask a whether question. So, whether Esther should have hid her identity. Erica and John, add in here if I'm missing something.
No, the only thing I always think of is this feels redundant at this point. You're
Mm,
literally
yes.
just adding the word whether to the front.
Yes, but that's what the book is going to
Yes,
teach.
but they're teaching them the process, the steps to think it through.
Mhm.
So we have the question, now we're thinking whether, like which
Mhm.
side.
Right. And then I should have said this earlier, but the whole reason behind a persuasive essay for CC and LTW is to get kids to think through their thoughts, to be able to articulate clearly what they're thinking, especially in terms of like sharing the gospel or defending their faith. So that's the big thing with persuasive thinking and writing.
And since
Okay.
you touched on that, I will just say, especially for those of you A parents, you're used to essentials, learning lots of different types of paper writing. For the next 3 years, we're going to focus on one type of paper, the persuasive paper, and that's it. And we're gonna work on perfecting this one type of paper. Because when they go to higher levels and they go to college or they have a career, their job is always going to be persuading someone their idea is correct. I'm persuading you that you should become a Christian, or I've discovered something new in science and I'm persuading you that my theory is correct, or I have written a book and I'm persuading you that you should read my book, or I'm writing a blog post and I'm persuading that you should think like me. And so it's the most active essay that they're going to be using, and they're gearing them for that portion of their future careers.
Well, and what I like too with that is that they do have to think of the negative, even if they if they don't think of the negative, then they may be thinking what maybe the other person might say or do, and then they're just ready for it. Just to be able to think through it.
Yeah.
I would say two things. One, you see the beauty of how CC prepares kids for debate, because this is starting to do that for them.
For those of you who are in A, like the essay started out so simple, it sounds really bad, and you're like, this can't be right, but it is. It starts out very simple, because the goal is, through A and B and 1, to get them to kind of have these tools memorized, so that by the time they get into 1 and beyond, like they just can pull out and write a persuasive essay just from memory, from memorizing these steps. So it starts out so simple, like in essentials, it's kind of easy +1. Here it starts out very easy, and then we progress. Okay, so for the first essay, they're gonna have to come up with, I think it's like 10 or 12 thoughts for each column. As we progress, it gets up to like 20, 30, because as we go through, they're gonna be not only writing about whatever side they choose, but the opposite side. And we'll get more into that in just a minute, but you can keep that in your mind. Okay, so after we have our whether question, whether Esther should have hid her identity, or statement. Okay, then we have our what's called our issue, and this is what our essay is gonna be about. Okay, so then we're gonna choose a side. So after reading our affirmative and negative ideas up here, what side are we gonna choose? Should Esther have hid her identity, or should she not have hid her identity?
Let's vote. Let's make everyone vote.
Yeah. Who says affirmative? She should have hid her identity. Okay, who thinks she should not have hid her identity? Okay, I didn't count.
I think the Bible's a Lever's one. That's what I think.
Great. Okay, so we'll go with the affirmative.
You
Okay,
all
so
are
we'll
no
say
fun.
Esther. Okay, this is
Maybe
Esther.
we should go the other way, Alicia, just for fun.
Yeah, let's do
Just
it.
for giggles?
She was a heathen.
Are you
She should
sure?
not have done it.
Are we gonna go with the opposite one?
For fun.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Okay.
Because it is, it'll be interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, I would,
Yeah.
if I was raising that.
And it's really fun in class when you have
I
kids who
protect you.
choose the opposite side, like just to be like,
Yeah.
not rebels, but like,
Yeah.
No.
poke the fire, and it
Yeah.
is fun. Okay, so here is our issue statement. So that's what our essay is gonna be about.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you do this. Remember, the first stage of every essay is called invention. That's where they're picking a character, they're coming up with their should statement or should question. They're gonna make an Annie chart, and then have a weather statement, and then they pick their side and have their issue.
So they're picking, okay, sorry.
Yeah, we can do questions now to wrap up this section.
Picking their
We
character
got one minimal final.
in the invention stage, they're picking their character, what else?
And then they'll like develop their should question.
Okay.
So even in the teacher book, if you look on page,
What are you looking for?
44, it'll show what the student, worksheet looks like. I'll also say, you're gonna use the same book all through one.
Okay.
So, like my daughter, or actually this is mine, but my daughter did write in her workbook at the beginning, but then I realized we shouldn't do that. So then,
Yeah.
I mean, you can copy these pages out of their workbook, or they can just use like notebook paper to write it down on, but they'll be using the same one, so.
They'll
lot of
be
people-
on me or all of
Her,
us?
yep, yeah, everybody.
So they'll rewrite another essay one. That's what
Yes.
you mean?
Yep.
Ah,
So they're
okay.
gonna use the same student
So don't
workbook,
write it.
A, B, and 1. So it might
Okay.
be a good idea for them not to write in their workbooks, we don't have to buy another one. So, copy the pages. Yes.
So, you pick a character, and then you said pick 3 things the character did.
I
kinda
don't have to
help
pick
you?
3.
But it just kind of helps you
Yeah,
so kind of.
Lots of times the students will already have their idea of
Yeah.
what they want to write out at that point. I
If
mean, they've
not-
read the whole book,
Yeah.
you know, so lots of times they'll be like, oh, I know exactly what to write about.
Yeah.
But if they don't, then
Okay.
yeah,
Pick
pick
3
3
things.
actions and then pick the one that you would most enjoy writing about for any reason,
Okay.
you know.
They're all doing different things, like different
not
characters.
necessarily. A lot of them will pick the same thing. For example, in A, they read The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe first, and like the most common one is should Edmund have followed the White Witch? So give them a lot, which is totally fine. They can pick the right one, because they might have different thoughts and ideas and reasons. So that's totally okay.
And I will throw this out, in B, I will ask everyone to have a different, they will announce what their weather statement or their should question is gonna be. I'll ask everyone have a different question. If 2 people come up with the same idea, I'll make them take opposite sides. But in A, you don't have to. Everyone can just write whatever you want to. But in B, we're gonna push and stretch just a little bit more. So, you know, kind of building on that. Stop it. Okay, since you were just talking about workbooks, let me throw you this. We will email this out to you guys. This, some loving director put together, it was not one of us. But there's this digital download, and it has each of the essays. It only goes through essay 6, because this was actually created for the Challenge A class. There are other workbooks like this that other people have created for B or 1, but I don't like them as well.
Is this on CC Connected?
No, this is on the director's website, but I'm gonna email it to you. So this is just only directors can get this. But it goes through each essay, and it has, so that you don't have to write in your workbook. They can, the curriculum says just have them draw the worksheets and write everything out on notebook paper themselves. That's great if you wanna do that, absolutely. One of the things for me as a parent was I wasn't sure they were doing everything they were supposed to be doing. So when I gave my students this notebook, I could flip through and be like, okay, essay 1, this week you're supposed to have this, this, and this done. If it's either filled out or it's not, and then I know for sure they did everything they were supposed to do. It made it easier for me to check. But it goes through and it has your little Annie chart to fill out. It does only go to 23 reasons. Technically, we're supposed to hit 25 by the end of the year. I don't care. I'm like, it's fine. 23 is totally sufficient. And then you'll have week 2 is your arrangement, and we'll kind of go over how to do this, but it has your arrangement worksheet, and then it has your outline for essay 1, okay? And then you'll go into essay 2, and you'll have your Annie chart, and now you'll have your, you'll get into your worksheets, your order of development, and then your outline again, and then essay 3, and then we start getting into some worksheets that we're doing, which we're gonna go over with you all. So it has each of the worksheets that you need, and then it's very repetitive. It's got each thing in here. So this goes through essay 6. For my students, like in A, I just printed 2 copies of this because you go through each essay twice, and then you go through 6 3 times. So I just printed 2 copies, and then I just printed the 6 a 3rd time, and literally 3-hole punched it and threw it in a notebook for my students, and that's what they did. In B and in 1, we only do each essay 1 time as we go through, but we do like 2, 4, 5, 6, and 7 in B. And then in 1, you do those, and then you add 8 and 9. And so I just kind of printed, and then when I got to 7, 8, or 9, there's not much missing from essay 6. There's not much different. So I just printed the essay 6 worksheets for all of the future essays, and just used that as they went through. The other thing I want to go over before we jump into essay 1 is this is a grading rubric. And so do take one and pass it around. If you're in A, don't worry about this. And this is an extra thing that I do for my students in B, okay? So if you're in A and you want to grade your student's essay, here's a format on how to do it, okay? In B, I will collect their essays and I will be going over this to give them accountability. And I do that just because they've already got the experience. They're ready for that accountability, and I know the essay format better than you do. And so I use this, it's more like a checklist than like a grade. But I kind of go through here and I check, like, did you get all of the components of the outline? Did you get all of the components of a formal MLA paper? And did you get all the dress ups added in, okay? So this goes through here, and I'll just walk you through, and we can send this out as a link as well. I've color coded it specifically for B, but if you look down at the bottom, the color codes also tell you what essay number. So blue is for essay 2. So I don't include essay 1 because in B we don't do just essay 1. You only have to write essay 1 one time ever. So that's nice. And then you go on to essay 2. So you can look at this outline here. This has everything in it. So the blue sections are what are included in essay 2, and then it builds. The pink is basically essay 4. We group 3 and 4 together after A. So in B and 1, we always group those essays together. And so the pink is what you add in. So the blue and the pink together is the complete outline for essay 4. And then the orange is what we add in for essay 5. So blue, pink, and orange all together are the essay 5 outline. And then green is essay 6 and yellow is essay 7. And 7 is your completed outline, okay? So after 7, on 8 and 9, you do not add anything new to your outline. What we are adding are more figures of speech. So you add 2 new figures of speech for 8 and 9. You'll see those at the bottom. They're white. They're not coded. And then you're just kind of perfecting the essay 7 outline as you do 8 and 9. And you only do those in challenge 1. And then at the top on the left, everything that's blue, these are what is included in your MLA format. So for A, you can handwrite, or whatever you want to do to turn in your paper. In B, I'm going to request that your student type it and begin learning how to use the MLA format. And so I will be marking those things, learning how to do the spacing, learning how to do the fonts. It is a skill set. So it's great for them to start getting that practice. So I'll mark on here like, hey, you got everything, you missed double spacing your paragraphs, okay? And we'll talk through on their paper so they can learn from that. This critiquing that I'm giving them is helping them to move forward. So if the first essay they turn in is missing 3 or 4 components, then hopefully the next one they'll learn from that, because I gave them the feedback to say, hey, you're missing these 4 things, and then they can try to implement those in the next essay. Starting challenge 1, you're in high school, your student, and I don't know how strict you are with that, but technically in high school, all essays must be typed in a formal format. And 1 through 4, your student will either be typing in the MLA format or in the APA format for every paper they turn in. So, also, if you use Google Docs, they have a template for both of those formats, and you can just grab that template and then plug in your information in there, your essay into their template. So it'll have the margins and the font and the sizing and everything correct for you. And they have an essay in Latin. There you go. And so then you just kind of remove their text and put your text in. So that makes it really easy, and that's how I taught my girls how to do MLA and APA. So there's a 3-week cycle that we go through. Week 1 is your invention. Week 2 is your arrangement. Thank you.
So we're going to be on page 45.
Thank you.
So the second step in every essay is called arrangement, which is how where they're going to develop their outline for their essay.
Okay. And then week 3 is elocution. So week 1 for essay 1, they're learning how to do the Annie chart, and that's it. And so Alicia will walk them through all that in class. And then week 2, they're going to write from their Annie chart. They're going to write it into an outline. So starting at page 45, it teaches you how to teach this to your student. I'm going to flip over to page 49. And they've got a little sample outline there, and we're just going to plug our Annie chart, our ideas, into this outline. We're not actually writing the essay yet, but we're working on the outline. And I'm gonna write all this up here with a blue marker, so it matches the grading rubric, so you can kind of see what we're doing as we go through. I know, I love organization.
I will point out one thing. If you turn to page 52, it gives you the outline for that essay, and you'll see these words that have asterisks next to them. That just means their information is going to go in for that.
And actually, go ahead and turn to 52 now, because I already skipped past 49, and I am working from the outline on page 52. Now, they will have the order of development questions in their student workbook. On the arrangement week, they'll do two things. They're going to fill out their order of development, which is a worksheet that's going to help them think through, what am I going to talk about? How do I move my ideas that I wrote on my Annie chart to my outline? Then they're going to rewrite it on their outline paper. So we're going to fill out the order of development, and then I'm going to copy all these ideas in the correct order on my outline paper, just right next to it, right across here, okay? That's why the outline is included in the workbook as well, because you're just writing next to each one. And the reason we do that is we want them to think through what they're writing in a different order from they're actually going to be putting it in their paper. So, and we will see that as we kind of walk through here. So the first question you're going to ask yourself is, what is your issue? Write your issue. Well, we determined our issue is Esther should not have hid her identity. Do you want to write these up underneath this as we go through the order of development? Yep. Okay, so then the next one is your thesis. Now we're going to rewrite the issue as a thesis statement. So my thesis for this is going to be, I mean, really, I just use the exact same thing. If you want to get fancier with it, you sure can, okay? I would just use the exact same statement. Does anybody have a different way you'd like to word it so it's more eloquent?
You could just add some extra words, like, I believe Esther should not have hid her identity from her new husband, or from the king, or whatever.
If our student is putting in, they're not going to say I, or can they say I?
No.
Yeah.
Okay, so in a scholarly essay, you're never going to refer to yourself. We know it's what you think because it's your essay.
Yeah, so when they're putting their opinions in, they are not
They're just
putting I,
stating
they're just
it like
stating
fact.
the opinion. Yeah.
Yep.
Can I ask a dumb question? How would I have known that? Is that in the book taught? Is that just like, I went to college and so I know that?
I learned that at school is what I know. Do you think it's in the book?
It's not in the book, but I think
I know part
They
of
would-
essentials, we never say I until like unit 9, which not every kid even does that. And so I think maybe that is even part of it.
Okay.
If our student is putting in, they're not going to say I, or can they say I?
No.
Yeah.
Okay, so in a scholarly essay, you're never going to refer to yourself. We know it's what you think because it's your essay.
Yeah, so when they're putting their opinions in, they are not
They're just
putting I,
stating
they're just
it like
stating
fact.
the opinion. Yeah.
Yep.
Can I ask a dumb question? How would I have known that? Is that in the book taught? Is that just like, I went to college and so I know that?
I learned that at school is what I know. Do you think it's in the book?
it's not in the book, but I think
I know part
They
of
would-
essentials, we never say I until like unit 9, which not every kid even does that. And so I think maybe that is even part of it.
Okay.
Okay, so we've rewritten our thesis statement. We maybe dressed it up a little bit. Now, what you're going to do is brainstorm your 3 proofs. So we're going negative. So you're going to come back over to your Annie chart, and you're going to pick your 3. Oh, you did not do sorting the Annie chart.
we don't do that till essay 2.
Oh, we don't.
Let's pretend it's
I thought
essay
this
2.
was- So essay 1, they're just picking, okay, so for essay 1, you're gonna always have 3 main reasons to support your stance. So if we're doing the negative, well, we only have 4 up here. So what would be the 3 most compelling reasons that she shouldn't have hid her identity? So,
How about those 3 that you've got right there?
yeah.
Yeah, because we
Okay.
can kind of put the 4th one within the 3rd one.
Okay, so that would be our 3 main reasons.
So that's what we're going to write in now. So our order of development, we'll write, okay, my first proof is, what if she got caught? My second proof, well, and what order do we want to put them in? Which of those 3 reasons do you want to be first? Because we're going to think through, what's the most convincing order or the most logical order we could put these in? Which should we cover first?
She was lying.
Okay, she was lying. So let's just set the foundation there. That was wrong. Okay, what's our second proof gonna be? Which one do you think should come next?
She could have gotten caught.
Yeah, if you're breaking the law, then, the rule, then the next thing is, are you gonna get caught, and what happens then? And so then our third proof will be, she had to act differently, both doing other things and not doing some things. Okay, so we picked our 3 proofs. Now we're going to write our conclusion, and our conclusion is always going to repeat our thesis. So we're gonna repeat the thesis, and then we're going to repeat the 3 main proofs, okay? So we'll just repeat proof 1, 2, and 3, but this time we're gonna write all 3 proofs into 1 sentence. So we're just summarizing. So, in fact, some people will even combine the thesis and the 3 proofs into 1 sentence. You're absolutely allowed to do that. So, we've got that. Now, this is how we do it out of order. So, and this is like in essentials. You always think of your content first. You cover your body. Then you go to your conclusion and you think through, how am I going to wrap this up? Then, now that you have the full picture of what you're covering in your essay, you're going to go back to the introduction, because now you can give a clear introduction to cover all the information. And if you write your introduction first, you may decide halfway through your paper to add in some more things that you didn't introduce in the beginning. So now we're going to write our thesis for the introduction. So we'll just be like rewriting the thesis, and then add the enumerations. Does anybody know what enumerations means? They didn't think so. It means, number. Yeah. So on your enumerations, how many reasons do we have? 3. It's always going to be 3. Okay. Don't let that trip you up. And then you're going to list your 3 main proofs in the introduction. So you would list them either in 1 sentence, you can list all 3, or in 3 separate sentences. Either one is fine, okay? Okay. Also, when you get to B, I encourage my students, don't word your proofs the exact same way all 3 times. Maybe word it one way in your introduction and your conclusion, but then when you write it in, or introduction and conclusion here, but when you write it in your proofs, elaborate on it a little bit, write it a little bit differently, add some more information into there. But for those in A, that's more advanced, so don't worry about that. Okay, so we've done this order development. We've helped the student think through the paper in the correct order to get their juices flowing. So now they've answered all those questions. Now we're going to go to page 52. You're going to go to your sample outline, and you're just going to plug these in along the way. Section 1 is my introduction. Section 2 and 3 is my body section. That's my proofs and my refutation. And then section 4 is my conclusion. Okay. So we're just going to plug this information in. The first thing we need to cover in our introduction is the thesis, enumeration, and then our 3 exposition, our 3 proofs. When it says exposition on letter C, notice there's not an asterisk by it. Okay? Exposition is not telling you to write anything. It's simply listing that the exposition is coming after it. Proof 1, 2, and 3 are the exposition.
So you actually write out exposition, don't you?
Well, you can write that. You're not going to put exposition in your essay. Does that make sense?
But
You're
in
just
your
putting
outline, right?
proof 1, 2, and 3.
Okay.
Yes.
Yep. Yeah, so like on the student worksheet, it says transcribe your outline onto a separate page.
Mhm.
So yes, if they're gonna write this out, they would write the word exposition.
Mhm.
Right there.
But if they're writing if they're just going to like write next to this, you're not going to write anything next to exposition.
Right.
You're just going to write next to proof 1, 2, and 3. Okay.
We've got Roman numeral 1, 2, and 3, and then 4. And I might be looking at a different outline.
Yeah, I'm building into the essay 7 outline. Okay. These Roman numerals for essay 1 are going to change.
Gotcha. Okay, you're not looking at 1 anymore.
Okay, so I am looking at essay 1 to put our components in, but I'm labeling this different from essay 1 because when we get to essay 5 and 6, they're going to change the Roman numerals. The conclusion is going to become Roman numeral 4.
Okay.
So I'm preparing us for that.
Okay.
So
That makes sense.
yeah. Okay, so we've got our thesis. I gotta write small to fit this in, which is Esther should not, and I'm just gonna do shorthand here, okay? And then we've got the enumeration, which is 3 reasons, and then you've got your exposition, which is, proof 1 is she lied. Proof 2 is, what if she got caught? And proof 3 is had to act differently.
And they don't need to write complete sentences when they do their outline. It can just be,
Like keyword.
Yeah.
Okay, and then we're gonna go into our body and we're going to do our 3 proofs. So that's gonna be back over here. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so number 1, we're just gonna copy this down again. She lied. Number 2 is what if she got caught? And number 3 is she had to act differently. And we're gonna be adding more to this as we go through. And then for your conclusion, we just have our thesis again, which is Esther should not have lied. And then your summary of proofs. I'm gonna write summary, and then I'm just gonna write 1, 2, and well, no, I'm gonna write it out so that I can do it like the students need to. She lied. What if she got caught? I'm putting it all on one line now, and she had to act differently. Okay, for essay 1 then, you're done. So this was what we just went over was week 2 arrangement. Now you're gonna go on to week 3 elocution. You're literally just gonna take this, type it into full sentences in this order, and you're done, okay? So just to reiterate, because it can feel really redundant in the beginning, the reason we're doing the order of development is so that they think it through logically, okay? It's a thinking process. And then we're going to, it feels redundant, copy it onto the outline so that it is ready to be typed out. If you do not go from the distribution, or from the order distribution and recopy it onto the outline, when they go to type it into an essay using their order distribution, they will get the outline wrong every time.
Because we always do the conclusion first.
And the introduction at the very end.
Similar to essentials.
Yeah. So we just found I've tried many different ways, and we have just found every time you've got to come back over here and copy it over again. So now by the time they get to challenge 1, perhaps these students have thought it through and they can handle it. You would just have to, check with your own student on that and see.
Yeah. So then if you turn to page 56 and 57, it shows you what the essays would then sound like when they wrote them out. So ours would sound like Esther should not have hid her identity from the king for 3 reasons. She lied, she could have gotten caught, and she acted differently. The first reason, Esther should not have blah, blah, blah. Right, the second reason, blah, blah. So it's very repetitive. And then the last paragraph there, Esther should not have hid her identity from the king because she lied, she could have got caught, and she acted differently. So you're just repeating all the ideas in sentence form. Yeah. So
for essay 1, you do not add any figures of speech. So they're just going to type it into their essay and then they're done. And then that's going to wrap up the 3-week cycle for essay 1. Are there any questions over that essay?
I just think it needs to be reiterated that it will sound dumb.
Mm-hmm.
Your first essay sounds so stupid, and you're going to be at home and your kid is going to be crying about it because they're like, this is so dumb, why are we doing this? And you're like, I know, can you just take the break? Just receive it. Just put it outside.
That it's easy.
Okay, you're done. Walk away.
Yes.
No, it's good.
Yeah. And the reason, a little bit of vision if your student needs that, the reason we're starting with it so simple and it's so redundant is because we want to lay the foundation. These are the nuts and bolts of your essay. We're gonna add flowery things, but if we add too much in at once, they're gonna forget the nuts and bolts. I cannot tell you how many times in Challenge B last year, I had students turn in papers that only had 2 proofs. Why only 2 proofs? 3 proofs, okay? So just remember, we've got to learn. You've always got to follow this, format. That's the nuts and bolts of it, so we don't forget what we're doing here.
Oh, I remember what I was gonna say.
Yeah.
I was reading, I think it was a Challenge 1 guide, and it was talking about Martin Luther King Jr. and how he wrote his famous speech, right, in jail. So it was very closely like similar to Paul. Anyways, so Martin Luther King Jr. is one of his famous speeches. Wrote it in prison, so he didn't have any notes, anything to like help him write this speech. But it was like so mimicked of this. Like he had 3 proofs, like supporting proofs for what he was trying to say. And so they had that in the guide to just show like how powerful it can be when you've thought through what you're wanting to portray and say to people. It was really interesting. So
That's cool.
okay.
Okay, so then we'll go on to essay 2 and back up to the invention week. This week you're not learning any new worksheets, but you're learning how to sort your Annie chart.
So in essay 2, the invention stage, they're learning about the 5 common topics, which we talk a lot about in challenge. So the 5 common topics are topics that can help them ask questions to generate ideas for their Annie chart. So jumping over to page 65. I guess it starts on 63 too. Actually 62. Page 62. So it's teaching them the 5 common topics. So we have the topic of comparison, which is how is X similar or different than Y. The topic of definition, where we're asking who or what is this, what kind of thing. Topic of circumstance is, so thinking about the event. So if we were thinking about Esther, so topic of circumstance would be what else was going on in another part of the world at the same time.
Or even another part of the city.
Right, yes.
Yeah,
Somewhere
anywhere else. So yeah, you're just a gentle exposure to these 5 things. We're gonna deep dive into them in essays 3 through 6. Right. 3 through 7. That's 5. So right now she's a gentle. So when Alicia says comparison, what your student's gonna do in essay 2 is just do a little brainstorming. Okay, what comparison what can we compare something to? Literally, it can be anything. So I do tell the students you need to pick one thing from your issue. So pick one word from the issue you want to compare to something else. Hid. Okay. What can we compare hid to?
Like Rahab hid the spies.
Okay. How is this similar or different to how Rahab hid the spies? Esther hid her identity. Rahab hid the spies. How is it similar or different?
Similar because they were trying to keep themselves safe.
Okay.
Shine was trying to keep herself safe. Rahab was trying to keep spies.
Yes. Excellent. Anybody else? Let's get one more.
Are we saying how it is the same?
Similar or different, doesn't matter. Just how do they compare Esther's hiding to Rahab's hiding?
They both lied.
Okay, they both lied,
Yeah.
I got another one. They're both female.
Yeah.
Okay, and then definition. Pick a word from your issue and let's define it. What's an important word?
Identity.
Identity. What is your identity, Beth?
Oh, shoot. Who you really are.
Definitely.
Okay, who you really are.
Yeah, thank you. Toss.
Okay, circumstance. This is what Alicia was talking about. Esther's in the king's castle. Palace? I don't know. Pick any other location other than the king's palace. Pick literally anywhere in the whole world. China. Okay, what's going on in China at the same time, John, that Esther, what's our time period? What years are we?
Very early. China wasn't established.
Well, yeah. So the Persians, Esther's king was king of the Persians, right? So, and the Persians were trying to take over the whole Middle East. So, was there any connection between China? What was going on in China at that time? Was that the Ming dynasty?
The Ming.
I know all you see going through your timeline.
Listen,
right now, you're
we're just going to say it was, for simplicity's sake. Okay, we got the Ming dynasty happening in China. Okay? Now, I tell my students this. Some of our brainstorming is going to be more helpful to your essay. Some's going to be less helpful. Okay? That's all right. Not everyone has to be bullseye. Okay? Let's pick another place, another location.
How about just in the same area?
That's
What was
what could it-
happening with her?
Yeah, could it be like
Yeah, with her
just not
uncle
inside?
at the
Okay,
time.
so Mordecai's home.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tell me something. I don't know how to spell
It's
that.
great.
Tell me something that we know about Mordecai's home. What was going on there? While she's in the king's palace, what's he doing? Did any of you watch the play?
Isn't he watching the gate?
Yeah, he was spying.
And he heard the plan.
He was
Yeah. And why was he sitting at the gate? Do you remember? And he heard the plan. Why was he sitting at the gate? I think, was he mourning over the women being taken? Was he at the gate mourning? Or was he, because I can't remember if he had his job in the palace yet. I don't think he did.
No, because he overheard and then.
Yeah, so he's at the gate, we'll just say he's mourning. Okay, and he overhears the plan. Well, I'll put that in there too. Okay, now relation.
So this would be like what led to the situation
Right.
where the decision needed to be made. So what led to Esther having to make the decision to hide her identity? What circumstance?
I think of this like cause and effect.
Mm-hmm.
So what's one thing that caused Esther having to hide her identity? Like what's something that led up to it, an event that caused her getting to this situation?
The king was looking for a wife.
Okay. What's something that happened because Esther hid her identity? What was a result of that or an effect of that?
Her people were saved. Like if you're talking about old.
Yeah. I'm gonna write juice.
Yeah.
So much paper. Okay. And then testimony.
So what do witnesses say about the character and her actions? So testimony would be, yeah, what do people say about this person and what's thought about her?
Well, it's in the Bible.
So
it must
Is
be
this-
important
there we
for
go.
us.
Yeah.
And I can't remember, is testimony the same as authority?
Yes.
Where do you get that
Yeah.
authority?
So you can ask yourself, like, who's the authority in this situation? God. And so we know this story was important to God. There's value to it because He put it in the Bible. So we know that there's, something important here. Okay. So now we're gonna move from this brainstorming we did to the Annie chart.
I think this would actually be a good spot for the question that came up.
Okay, go ahead.
So, because this would apply, I think, kind of what you're talking about. She was like, asked if suggestions on if a kid gets stuck with being able to come up with the exact number of statements for an Annie chart. So this is something here that also helps with that, because it is literally getting your kids to think about different circumstances and different perspectives. And then also, like, literally sitting down with your kid, and sometimes it's not this part, but it's like, how do you feel about that? Like, what would you have done in that scenario? Just because it puts them in the book a little bit more, instead of just trying to look at it, because my kid gets really bored sometimes. He's like, it's just a book, who cares? And it's like, but how would this affected you, and start pulling in different circumstances and stuff like that. So you
I
guys
think
have,
that's it. Jude would get stuck on like, oh, I need more suggestions, so I'd be texting Alicia, and I would be like, I didn't have time to read the book, so I don't even know, unless it was one that I had read years before.
Yes.
So I think that was always like one of our struggles. He'd be like, oh, I don't have enough for my affirmative, or especially when you get into like 20.
Well, I thought even about our chart, and I was like 12 for each column. That seems like a lot.
Which in class, that's where it comes in when they pay attention, because we talk about the story, so we'll talk about it, everyone can kind of share their thoughts. We'll go around, I'll have them all share their issues, share some of their proofs, so that if they're struggling, they can take some from other kids too, who have other thoughts.
So, what?
Go ahead, down first.
Let me say one more thing. So to follow up on that, watch this pattern as we go through this tonight. Each new essay we do is going to introduce a new brainstorming worksheet, okay? So what I tell my students to do, Tuesday, for Invention Week, Tuesday you go home and you brain dump everything you can into your Annie chart. What ideas do you already have in your mind? They've already got some. They could probably put 5 to 10 on each column, some ideas that they already have,
Will
okay?
they choose their issue before then, or you don't have to have an
They'll choose it Tuesday. Yeah,
Okay.
choose your issue and
do
then
that.
do your
Okay.
Annie chart. Yep. Then Wednesday, we're gonna come back and do your worksheet. So Wednesday, we're gonna do this. We're digging a little bit deeper, and then guess what? We did all this brainstorming here. Now we're gonna move this onto the Annie chart. So I'll let you. Okay. So we're gonna go through here and go, okay, so the comparison, they are both safe. Is that affirmative or negative? She should have hid because they were both safe, just like in Rahab? Will that be an affirmative or a negative reason? Or interesting? Okay, she should have hid her identity because we have proof from 2 stories that it would keep her safe. They were both lying. Is that affirmative or negative or interesting? Negative.
That would be if we hadn't already put on there that.
Right,
Okay.
so that one's already
Yeah.
on there, so that's fine. They were both females. Affirmative, negative, interesting. Good, okay. Our definition, our identity is who you really are. Does that affirmative, negative, or interesting?
What was that?
Our identity is who you really are, our definition.
I think it could be affirmative or interesting, because it's not a lie.
And you can pick,
Yeah.
okay?
Yeah.
Your student can put any reason in any column they want to, so long as they can justify it to me.
Yeah.
If they can explain why they put it in that column,
Mhm.
good to go.
Mhm.
So, okay, circumstance. We've got the Ming Dynasty in China. Affirmative, negative, or interesting?
Not even interested.
Wow, it just took a turn in here.
She's in challenge A.
Okay, Mordecai.
I'm just trying to bring like a 12-year-old.
Mordecai is at the gate mourning, and overhears a plan. That's almost
I
two
think
different things.
that-
He's
I
at the
think
gate
it's-
mourning. Is that
I think
affirmative or
it would
negative?
be a negative. He's there, if he's mourning because of,
Yeah, because of the
whatever.
situation she's
Right.
in. Agreed. Now, the fact that when he's there, he hears the plan. Is
Which
that
would be
affirmative or negative?
affirmative,
That would be
right.
affirmative. Yep. Okay, cause and effect. The king is looking for a wife. Is that affirmative or negative that she should lie? Hide her identity. He's looking for a wife.
or maybe just.
I say affirmative. It gives her a better chance maybe of winning. Or negative because you can't build a marriage off of lies. We're gonna put it in both columns.
All right,
Yeah. Okay, and you can do that. Like I said, so long as you can justify it, you can put it anywhere you want. The Jews were saved. So effect is that over the long term the Jews were saved. So is that affirmative, negative?
Yeah.
And your testimony is that this story is important to God. Affirmative, negative, or interesting?
It's affirmative, right?
Sure.
Mhm.
Sure.
Okay, go Jen.
Okay, here's my question.
Okay.
This comparison, like the 5, whatever. So I'm looking in the student book. Is this, it's not in a worksheet where they can write this out. So is this just verbally between the 2 of us that I should have been doing?
I think
my
there's
other
some
doc-
worksheets.
This is only, Jen, this is only for essay 2.
Okay.
There's not an official worksheet.
Yeah,
Just write it down like this.
so just, that's what I was.
We're only doing,
Aren't there some
well,
worksheets for
there
some?
are. Here,
like, for
essays
instance,
3 through 7, we're gonna do a worksheet on every single
Yeah.
one of these.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we're just
Separately.
introducing
Separately.
this,
Just
and,
introducing
then-
it.
and so this is something I would sit down, and this is gonna help generate things for the Annie chart.
Mhm.
But there's not, because I'm like looking, I'm like, I am not
No.
seeing this in here.
Let
Am
me
I
show you
missing
this
it?
though.
Yeah, for it.
Yeah.
All,
So there's student worksheets.
No, go ahead.
On page 68 in your book,
In my book,
in the teacher guide,
Uh-huh.
on page 68 it would be, it shows the sample student worksheet, so it's just the questions. They're not
okay,
like,
yeah, because it's not in the student book.
right.
No,
So I
not
was
for
like,
that part.
Right,
Yeah.
but I'm like, because
No,
it
right.
looked like we were doing
Right.
it together, like I would do with my kids.
Right,
But if they're
right.
getting stuck on points, you can do that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
good, I like it. Okay, cool, thank you.
Okay.
Answering my questions.
all the cool things I do came from Jen Fortin, who started our community and was the Challenge B director before me. And so she has this, I even bought her book, so she has it written in her book. So this is like a turtle shell, and this is one way you can do this as a worksheet, Jen. So
Okay.
you just take this and you put each of the 5 topics
Alrighty.
in one of these.
Very artistic.
I don't know why there's 6. So we've got, lots of times we break out comparison similar and comparison different separately. So we'll do comparison similar, comparison different, definition, testimony, circumstance, and relationship. So if you want a fancy, fun worksheet thing, there's one for you. Curtis
And we'll
Jen
do
Fortin.
things like this in A2 where we do like a topic wheel, kind of the same idea.
Cool. Okay. And so that's your invention week for essay 2. And then we go on to the arrangement week. So now you've gotten 10 to 15 items on your Annie chart, and you're not going to use all 45 items in your essay. So now you have to learn how to sort your Annie charts. So you wanna walk into that?
Yes. So the reason we're sorting is because now in this essay, we're gonna have our 3 main proofs, and each proof is going to have 3 sub-proofs. So altogether, we need 12.
Yes.
12 ideas, 12 total proofs. So 3 main proofs.
We're on page 69, sorry.
Yes, right. Okay, so so we would need a lot more reasons here, okay? So if these are our 3 main proofs here, okay? Now each one of these is gonna need 3 sub-proofs. So what we would do is go down our list of thoughts. So we would just go to the next one. She couldn't worship as a jewel. We said earlier that could be related to this one. So the way it teaches them is they can use symbols, right? So what they would do is look at the first proof and they would give that a symbol. I give it a number 1.
If you flip to page 74 in your teacher's manual, you can follow along with an example one too.
So it's teaching them just to go down the row and kind of put them together, how they kind of fit or are related together, each of these ideas. Okay, so the next one, lie. Well, that doesn't really go with, she could have got caught, so that's its own. She acted differently, that's its own. So, okay, the next one, she couldn't worship as a Jew. Well, I could relate that to number 3. So I'll just put a number 3 by that. Mordecai was mourning. Does that relate to 1, 2, or 3 in any way?
I think maybe 1,
Okay.
because maybe someone's like, why are you mourning?
Mhm.
And then he has to tell them what, and then they could have gotten caught.
Good. Okay, the king was looking for a wife. Does that relate to 1, 2, or 3 in any way?
2, because
Yeah.
she had to lie.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so we would just keep going down until we went through all of our ideas on there. And that's why they need at least 12, because we have to have 12 for the outline. Okay. So that's how they sort.
And I don't know if this helps anyone that's gonna be an A, but Owen would feel completely differently than I did about some of those, and it didn't matter. I just was like, okay,
Yes.
all right, I guess that relates. I don't know.
Yes.
Especially if I haven't read the book.
Yeah.
And he's like, I don't think that fits with that. Okay. So
That's
but
a
in his
really good
mind,
point.
Yes.
it's like, that really works with that one.
Yeah.
That doesn't work with that
Yes,
one.
and you want them to do that because they're thinking through it, so.
Think about if you dumped a big pile of toys on the floor and told your 5-year-old sort these out. Well, they could sort them by color. They could sort them by category of toy. They could sort them by size. There's lots of different ways to sort.
Their favorites.
Yes,
Good.
favorites, middle favorites, least favorites.
Yep.
Yeah, so thank you. Okay, so week 2, you've worked on your arrangement, or you've sorted your Annie chart. We are going to add to our outline just simply our 3 sub-proofs for each of these, okay? So for she lied, let's see, we're doing negative. So you guys are gonna help me brainstorm reasons to go with each of these. So if there's something on the Annie chart you wanna use, tell me. If not, let's come up with some. So she lied. What's a sub-proof for she lied? Why she should not have hid her identity. What falls into the category of she lied? What are 3 reasons why she should not have hid her identity that have to do with it was a lie? Okay. And dishonest is almost just another way to say lie, but I think where you're going with that is it's breaking God's law.
Yes, that's what I meant.
Yeah.
It's one of the 10 Commandments.
So we're on page 79 now.
So
Thank you. That outline.
Okay, so one, she's breaking God's law. Why else?
So you want something kind of different, because you wouldn't say it was a sin, because that is.
Right, something
breaking
kind of
God's law,
different.
So it needs
Yep.
to be a little bit different, okay. Not just another way to say it.
Right. We're not looking for synonyms. We're looking for.
Cool, cool.
She
I'm just gonna repeat
lied.
it in different
She's
ways.
breaking God's law. There's consequences when you break God's law.
Yeah.
There's always a consequence for your actions. So there could be negative consequences.
Also, it was her. Other people could be looking to her, like her.
Setting a bad example.
Yes, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, I'm trying to
She's
say
now
this.
setting a bad example. And look at how many people over the next 2,000 years after her story tells are reading her story and learning from it. And what are our children supposed to think about lying if God says lying is wrong, but Esther goes and does it? And she got caught. Or she could have gotten caught. Because she lied, she could have gotten caught. So what are some reasons? What might have happened if she had gotten caught? So here's where we're talking about going a little bit out of the book report version, like, John was talking about. You get to brainstorm a little bit. You think, what might have happened if she had gotten caught? Why should she not have hid her identity?
She could have been killed.
She could have been killed.
The Jews would not have been saved.
Yeah.
Would not have been
Yeah.
saved. Might not have been saved.
Might not have been said, yeah.
All three. Somebody bring my stuff to me.
Third reason, she might have gotten caught and
Her family could have gotten killed.
yeah, family. Okay. And then she had to act differently. We already had some sub-proofs for this, right?
Yep, she couldn't do things or not do things that were morally.
So she couldn't, we'll just say religion. She couldn't celebrate her religious things. On the other hand, she had to act
She had to compromise.
compromise. Okay, one more.
It'd be tiring, because you have to remember
Uh-huh.
everything.
Yeah.
And
Oh, yeah,
how you act
stress.
around people because you're nervous. Like,
Very good.
The king doesn't
So
like you.
this is our completed SA2 outline. Okay, now we skipped over the order of development. So I want you all to pay attention. So your student on week 2 is going to do the order of development. It's going to walk him through all these questions, and then they're going to plug it in order here. Okay, we just skipped straight to that. Okay, then they're going to do elocution. For SA2, the elocution is a parallelism. This is a one-word parallelism, and parallelism means synonym. No, you're good. So I don't even remember how. There's a worksheet for this too. It's there we go.
So the parallelism one is just words. So it's a similarity of structure in a pair or series of related words. So the way they teach this is you're either going to pick like a verb or an adjective or a noun, and you're going to think of other words in that same part of speech. So here's where some essentials comes in. So for example, in the book it has examples like where it says friends, Romans, countrymen, lend me your ears. So they use 3 nouns there. Or I came, I saw, I conquered. They use 3 verbs. So if we're going to pick something.
Could we be weird and use the word killed?
Yeah, go for it. Right here.
Got
Like
caught?
killed
Yeah,
or
yeah. I think the top point. No, number 2.1 or subproof 1. Is that say killed?
She could have been killed.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So give me a couple of synonyms for killed.
Beheaded.
Beheaded. See how much more visual that
Yeah.
is? We're adding a lot. Yeah, she could have been beheaded. How else? What's another synonym? Executed?
Yeah.
One more. For killed, Jen. A synonym for killed.
Deaded.
Deaded.
I'm obviously joking.
Calm. There we go. Yeah. Okay, so that's definitely going to get your point across more. Like, not only to just like killed, like these are some gruesome ways to die. So like Alicia said, you pick your word, killed, and then you tell yourself what part of speech is killed. Noun, verb, adjective. It's a verb. So all of your synonyms have to be verbs. Okay.
And you just put it in your outline like that?
So you've got a little worksheet to do either in your student notebook or in your printout. And so you'll kind of fill out that part of speech.
Okay.
Yeah, Becky, what I tell my students to do is after you've completed your elocution worksheet, come back and write it into your outline. Otherwise, they will forget to type it into their essay. Have you guys read their essays and noticed like the elocutions are missing?
And Beth was wondering on, and I don't remember either, when are we doing this part?
We're
The
on
parallelism.
week 3 elocution.
Week 3, okay.
Week 3 elocution has your big.
Is it SA2?
This is essay 2, week
Week
3. So every week 3, you're gonna add a figure of speech to your outline, the one, and all of the cumulative ones. So it's like IEW with dress ups. You add one dress up, and then you continue adding that dress up for the rest of the year. And then you add a second dress up, and now you add 2 dress ups to every essay for the rest of the year. And then you add a third one. So we're building cumulative here. So since we've done essay 2 and we've learned how to do the one word parallelism, they're gonna add that in every essay for the rest of the year now, okay? So this is week 3 elocution. They add their figures of speech on Tuesday. Then Wednesday, they come in and type out their essay, and Thursday, mom proofreads it and edits it, and Friday, they make sure it's printed and in their folder for class. This is the completed essay 2, so we would just type this out into complete sentences. This is essay 2. Notice it's a little bit fuller. This feels like a regular 5-paragraph essay for middle school or high school students, okay? Then we're gonna go to essay 3. We're starting back up at the invention week now. And the invention of the 5 common topics, what we're gonna focus in on is comparisons, similarities. And so, do you wanna walk them through that worksheet?
Yeah.
Great.
So what we're gonna do is look at our issue, and we're gonna choose 2 terms from our issue. So likely we'll choose the 2 people involved. So what 2 terms can we compare from our issue, our thesis?
Or it could be 1 term in the issue and 1 term like anything, right?
I guess so. Oh yeah, it says you can compare 2 characters from your issue or a character from your issue with another character in the story.
2 characters.
So 2 characters. So it could be Esther and the king, or like Esther and Mordecai, or the king. So any two people. Who?
Mordecai and Esther.
Okay.
They're both lying. They're in on it together.
I like it.
He
All
kind
right,
of told
so
her
our
to.
2
Jack
terms.
did. Until it was right for him. Then he's like, tell the king.
Oh, spoken like a typical man.
Getting in on the discussion.
Okay. So then we're gonna just look at these 2 people, Esther and Mordecai, and basically just ask, what do they both have? What are they both? And what do they both do? So Esther and Mordecai both have what? What's something they both have?
They're both Jews.
Okay.
Well, that's what they both
both
are.
Oh,
That's
okay.
okay. Both are.
Okay. Sometimes I feel like it gets confusing separating the have, are, and do.
Yeah.
So like have is like, I don't know. I mean, it could
You
be
could
like
say they have
characteristics.
you could they have Jewish ancestry.
You can word it that way,
Yes.
yeah, for sure.
Have tough decisions.
You can say Jewish
Ooh,
families.
I like it best.
Decisions.
Both have
Do are action, so that's easy.
both have
But-
they have saving the people in the forefront of their mind. They both have that.
A decision to
I
make.
think it has compassion.
They're both protectors.
Reword that one.
No, that would be hard.
Are protectors.
I don't even
I
know.
They both have a
Both have
face.
families.
A face.
Oh.
And a face. They have faces. I mean, I'm sure these kids are gonna pull out whatever they can.
Yeah.
They have hands.
Uh-huh.
Okay, what else they both are or do?
They both lie,
They lie. They both do lie.
or they hide their identity.
Yeah.
Hide their identity.
They lie, they hide. Scheme, good.
Thank you.
They both die.
Jen, A plus.
Listen, you know I live
They
for
have to.
gold
They're
stars.
This is.
So, they weren't needed.
Next year we're gonna bring gold stars to
Yeah, I
this
know.
one.
Because there's so much participation, that would be so fun.
I would
Love it.
They both are, where are they living?
Persia. Is this a test?
Yes, it is.
I feel like it has been.
So they're both in Persia.
They both are bad role models.
There you go.
Kara's like,
To this side.
were they both
It's
orbit
been
or brains?
It is really good. It is.
Esther was,
What'd you
right?
say?
Because she was living with Mordecai.
And I can't remember if he was a puppet too. I can't remember.
Let's say that's the
Reverse. I like it.
All right,
Let's
wait
go.
a minute.
Let's
Okay,
go
guys.
for it.
If they
I
can
would
lie,
trust you
we
because
can
if
too.
that
If
one's
we're
I know,
right.
but
Oh,
this
right.
isn't for
Mine is
me.
okay.
They must have been passing you a note. I'm like, whoa. I
Okay.
feel bad the people who are watching this online.
Oh,
I
yeah.
don't know that that's a actual fact.
Right?
Okay.
Don't hold us to the facts of this essay. We are taking creative liberties.
Okay, so you guys get the idea. We're using comparison with similarities, compared to 2 terms from our issue or the story. What do they both have, both are, and both do.
Now, we're gonna take these interesting facts that we just came up with. Maybe this is our Tuesday of our invention week, and we're going to, no, let's see, invention week, we've done it, so maybe Tuesday you came home, you did your brain dump. Wednesday now you're doing your comparison similarities worksheet, and now you're gonna move those reasons over here onto your Annie chart.
Yeah, you did it off the wall.
Ours is kind of full actually, so maybe we won't rewrite them over there. But theoretically, you're gonna move these. So like Some of them, where would you move this? Like, they both have Jewish families. Affirmative, negative, or interesting? Interesting. They both make tough decisions or have tough decisions.
As
Affirmative,
relates to
negative.
she should have not hit her identity.
Yeah,
Oh,
you could put
as
it
relates to.
negative or affirmative, you could fight for it either way, really.
I think you could fight for it either way. Yeah.
Because
Affirmative
even
or
in
negative.
Jewish families, I feel like it could be affirmative. Like that's why she would do what she did.
Yeah.
Because of like.
Yeah, for strength to make tough decisions. They both have compassion. Affirmative, negative, interesting.
Yeah.
Affirmative. Let's say they both scheme. Affirmative, negative, or interesting?
I think it goes under the negative.
Negative.
Yeah.
She should not have
Been a schemer.
lied because it was scheming.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So you see how by brainstorming here, we're getting a lot more information for our Annie chart that we wouldn't otherwise have just pulled out of our head. Okay. These worksheets are causing us to dig deeper, and so they're going to build the list longer. So, essay 2, you now need 15 items on it. Just by doing this worksheet, you're gonna get another,
And this is in the little thing you say we can print.
the printable packet. Yep. So you'll get more on there to help you build your Annie charts longer like you need it to be. Okay. So week 2 arrangement. I'm gonna use pink.
Okay, I know you've said it, but I'm just gonna clarify. So essay 1, we have 3 weeks for that one. Essay 2, we're
3
just
weeks.
staying with the same topic. They will change topics.
Yes, they're gonna change books
It'll
for
be a
every
different
essay.
book, right? Okay. Okay. I'm
Yeah,
just making
we're
sure I
just gonna
understood
keep
that, and
building
I
on
wasn't-
Why
So-
are we writing
Language,
this?
or during all your.
Yeah. Why are we writing this?
They're reading other
So
ones.
for essay 2, week 2, we're gonna be focusing on arrangement, and we're going to add in an exordium. This is a great place to come over here and look at some of your interesting things. Essay 3, your exordium. Here's how we're gonna brainstorm through this, okay? This is your worksheet. Ask 3 questions. We're just brainstorming some things we can use for our exordium, okay? So what are 3 questions? Like I said, this is a great place to use your interesting column, okay? What are 3 questions, just different questions we could ask to kind of introduce this topic? We could ask,
To introduce what topic?
The issue.
the issue, Esther should not have hid her identity from the king.
Do females hide their identity?
Do females hide their identity? That's a question you could ask. Why did Esther change her name? What was Esther's original Jewish name? Those are questions you could ask.
Was Esther part of the Ming Dynasty?
Was Esther a part of the Ming Dynasty? That was a good tie-in. I liked that one. Gold star. Okay, so there's 3 questions. You could use one of those. You're also going to write 2 things that you can challenge your readers to do. What's a challenge you could start this essay with?
Have you ever wondered if hiding your identity is beneficial?
There you go. Have you ever wondered?
Is lying to protect someone wrong?
That's a great question.
Mhm.
What about this quote, for such a time as I kind of like that, like, how do you, that's a question still.
Oh, that's
What's a
good
challenge?
question, a challenge.
It's okay, yeah. What's the challenge we could do? Live your life, oh what, go ahead. Live your life for such a time as this.
Yeah, there you go.
What were you gonna say,
That's
Tiffany?
pretty similar. Is this for the opening?
This is for the exordium, yep, for the opening.
Okay, tell me again.
You
what-
can also use a quote,
What page are we
Tell me
on?
again what
You're on
exordium
page-
means.
page 104.
Exordium is like the introduction, like the attention getter.
The
that they're
attention
learning from
getter.
essentials. So you're gonna ask a
Wonderful.
question,
Okay.
give them a challenge, or do a quote. A quote could also be a scripture, or a verse from a poem, or a song, something that someone else said. So a quote.
You could use Esther 4:14.
Yeah.
For that, for a quote.
Mhm.
Or anything else. Okay, so then you're going to pick one. You don't need all of these. We're just gonna pick one. What's one way? Now your exordium is its own paragraph. So you can use several of these. You could ask a question, follow it up with a quote, and end with a challenge, okay? It could be 4 or 5 sentences. It doesn't have to be yet. Ideally, that's what we're building to. It doesn't have to be yet, okay? So let's just pick one of these. Which one do you like the best to open our essay?
The quote. 414.
Okay, so we're gonna do our exordium is gonna be the quote, Esther 4:14. This is all for essay 3. You're just adding that one exordium at the beginning. And then you'll go on to week 3 is elocution. And you add strong verb. So page 107, we're going to talk about verbs. So week 3, you're going to come home. You've got a verbs worksheet. This is very similar to what you did back in Essentials, okay? You remember those worksheets that, I don't know how they do Essentials now because they rewrote the curriculum, but they used to give us worksheets that said, hey, don't use the verb said or the verb ate or the verb went or had. Use something more exciting. Yes, so this exact same concept. Let's pull out a banned verb and let's put in a strong verb in place, okay? So there are some worksheets that kind of take you through how to brainstorm on this, but honestly, most of the kids already know how to do this. So let's just pick a verb in here that's uninteresting, and let's replace it with a stronger verb in our outline.
Breaking.
Breaking. Tell me where. Oh, here we go. Breaking. What can we use in place of breaking?
Violate.
Violate. All right. So
Who said that?
I'm gonna mark this out.
I don't know, somewhere over here.
Okay, so we're replacing that with violate, okay? That's our strong verb for our essay. That's all you have to add in, new, but remember you're doing all the figures of speech. So you added your strong verb and you also added your parallelism too, okay? So for essay 3, you're adding 2 figures of speech to your essay.
And it's not per paragraph, it's just in the paper. So.
Correct, just in the paper one time. Yep. Bonus points for those students who added more. And then you're going to type out your essay. And that's it. That's week 3, elocution, and you're done. We're going to flip over to essay 4 in your book now, page 117. We're going back up to our invention week, okay? So you read a new storybook. We're going to build on this. We're going to do comparison differences this time, okay?
What page are we on, I'm sorry?
Page 117, but I'm also kind of flipping through. If you want to jump all the way back to page 123, that's where the worksheet is. So we talked about already what both of we're going to keep the same comparison, Esther and Mordecai. We already talked about what they have, are, and do, and what makes them similar. Now, we're going to take that and we're going to break it down into how they're different, how they're more or less, or better or worse, okay? So we said, Esther and Mordecai, what was one they said they both do?
Lie.
They both lie. A scheme. Let's go with scheme though, that one's fun. Sorry, no, you're good. They both scheme. Who does it more or less?
Mordecai does it more.
Mordecai does it more. Excellent. So I'm just gonna put over here like more and less. Mordecai does it more, Esther does it less, okay? They both have, they had Jewish heritage, they had,
Hands.
huh?
I'm just playing.
They both had, I'm trying to think. I know.
They both have, I thought we did this.
We did, I know, I'm trying to pull it back out of my head.
Yeah.
We erased it.
Oh.
Can we make some up?
Yeah.
Issues they need to solve.
Tough
Oh,
decision.
tough decision.
Thank you, that's a good
That's the
one. Yep.
Somebody said earlier.
Because I feel like the Jewish heritage is more of an R one. I still think it's going to be hard to say which one has more or less Jewish heritage.
Sure.
They both have it, you know what I mean? Okay, they both have tough decisions. Whose decisions are more and less tough?
Esther's are hardest.
Esther's are harder. All right, so more and less over here. So see how we're kind of comparing by degree? And then they both are Jews. Which one is no? On the both are, we don't do more or less. You compare. Describe the difference. So let's describe the difference between Esther and Mordecai's Jewish heritage.
Well, he's a man, and
Yeah.
they had to probably go, like, the males were the ones who, like, learned
Uh-huh.
more of
Yeah.
Yep.
the rules. and
He
stuff.
learns more about the heritage, yep.
That's good.
So you could lean into that and say, which probably makes him more accountable.
Sure.
You know what? Knowledge makes you accountable.
Just like Adam in the garden.
Yeah, even though you did it first.
Which means that because he schemed more, he was accountable more. So I'm thinking about 4 or 5 different things I could put onto my Annie chart because of that line of thought. Beth?
I was just thinking about how culturally the women were so much even more like subject to the men. And so like the weight of obedience, especially not just to a man, but to a father figure, and how that would play into it.
So Esther is supposed to be more submissive. I don't know if I spelled that correctly. Are there 2 S's?
Yeah, it's okay.
There we go. And Mordecai had more responsibility. Okay. So you're gonna fill out your worksheet for this. And now this worksheet here, you're not gonna use the worksheet from Essay 3 anymore because that was just comparison similarities. You're gonna use this one from here on out because this has what are we similar in down this first column. We both do, we both have, and we both are these different things. And then you're gonna break down the differences between those similarities over to the right, okay? So this is your new comparisons worksheet that you're gonna use for all the essays from here on out, okay? And then we're gonna take this information and we're gonna move it over to our Annie chart. So essay 3, you probably need to have 20 reasons on your Annie chart.
Essay 3?
Essay 3,
Okay.
No, we're on essay 4.
Four.
Thank you for
Okay.
clarifying.
Okay.
Essay 4, we now have 20 reasons we need on our Annie chart, but we could certainly pull 5 or more things out of this and plug it on our Annie chart.
20 in each column. I
In
feel
each
like.
column, yeah.
I don't have a book in front of me, but silly question. Does it say that on that page, when you are done with this page, move this information over to your Annie chart?
That is a great question. No, it does not.
This is gonna rewrite this curriculum, guys.
So this doesn't specifically say it. I think it's more alluded to. I think if you read the text, like in the first essay or the second essay or maybe the third, like in one of the beginnings, it'll say it, but then never mention it again. That's one of the things about this curriculum you have to pay attention to. Once they say it one time, you're expected to do it from here on out. We're building in this curriculum, so they're not going to say it again. They're going to tell you one time how to do it and just assume you remember to repeat that the rest of the semester. So, okay, so we've taken another like 10 reasons from this, added them to our Annie chart, and we're done. So like essay 4, for your invention week, I would say like come home Tuesday, you're going to write your weather statement, you're going to brain dump all the reasons you can think of on your Annie chart. Then Wednesday, you're going to do your comparisons, similarities, and differences worksheet. One new bigger worksheet, this one. And then you're gonna have another 10 items, that you're gonna add onto your Annie chart, which is gonna get you to your 20 items per column. And I do like to separate it by days because sometimes your brain just gets fatigued. Like, have you ever done like a crossword puzzle and like you put it away and sleep on it and then the next day you pull it out and it's like, oh, I've got like 5 more things. I could not think of those yesterday, but now I have them. That's kind of how this Annie chart works. So do your worksheet, put it away. If you still don't have your 20 items per column, Thursday come back and just think through, like we did in essay 2, those 5 topics. Think through, is there anything else? Is there any other circumstance? You can do that little turtle shell again. Are there any other circumstances that I could help to add items to my Annie chart? Is there any testimony that I can help add items to my Annie chart? Is there any other things? And kind of brainstorm all 5 of those common topics to fill out the Annie chart. And then you shouldn't have any work for Friday at this point, like it should be a little bit lighter. Does that make sense?
That's great.
Okay, so essay 4, we just did the arrangement week. Now we're gonna move on to the outline, and this one's pretty easy. We're going to add the amplification. So that starts on page 125. I'm going to flip all the way over to page 130, and this is the worksheet for your amplification, okay? So, you've got your thesis statement, which is, Esther should not have hid her identity from the king. Who is my audience? Who am I talking to? Now,
We're
if you,
defining amplification right now. This, we're saying.
we are
Yeah.
doing the worksheet for how to write our amplification. Yep. If you are an adult in a career, you're actually going to think through, who is the audience I'm speaking to? Is it other teachers? Is it other scholars? Is it a group of students? Who is the audience I'm speaking to? Because I'm going to tailor my essay to that audience to engage and entertain them. For this class, your student gets to brainstorm. Who do I want to write my paper to? Am I writing it to the students in my class? I want them to connect and think through. Am I writing it to my parents? I want my parents to, to learn from this essay. Am I writing it to myself? Am I writing it to a group of students? Yeah, maybe I'm writing to unchristians. So for this worksheet for Esther, who could our audience be? Let's brainstorm. Any ideas? We could be writing to a youth group, as if we're giving a lecture. Like we could be writing to a group of youth students who are studying the book of Esther. That could be our audience.
Leaders.
We could be writing to a group of leaders. Yeah. Okay, great. Yeah, we'll go with that. Youth group. So what does this audience care about? Our your youth group at church, what do these students care about in relation to whether Esther should have hid her identity? How does it connect to them? How does this,
What's right and wrong?
okay, they care about what's right and wrong. Good. Any other ideas? Okay. I think they might care about what their parents think in this issue. You know, they're students, they have to obey their parents. So what are their parents' thoughts?
And just the consequences.
And they care about the consequences of these actions. Good. Then the next question is, and they have suggestions for who your audience can be in here. The next question is, like, how are they affected? How does this issue of should they hide their identity, how does that affect them? How do you personalize it to them? Like,
Could be like being bold in their faith, like not hiding their faith
very good, yeah.
in a world that's kind of
Anti. Yep. So should they hide their faith or not? You know, like that's how it could personalize to them. Okay, so we've identified our audience and we've told ourselves why this matters to them. So what we're going to do now in our amplification, which is going to go at the very end of the paper, it's like the last sentence you write, they're simply going to finish their essay by addressing the audience specifically and telling them why they ought to do whatever I just tried to persuade them to do in the essay. So I'm trying to convince them they should not hide their identity. Esther should not have hid her identity from the king, just like you should not hide your identity as a Christian in this world who is anti-Christian. Okay? So that could be my amplification. I charge all young students to not hide their faith in this world that is anti-Christian. Okay? So there's two parts to the amplification. Who am I talking to? And why do they care? This matters to all youth groups members because you need to know you should not hide your faith either, okay? They can get, usually they're going to start by kind of mimicking that exact sentence, but as you get into B and into one, you can get more creative with it, okay? So just know that'll be their comfort zone, but we'll encourage them to kind of be more eloquent in their wording. Okay, so down here at the very end, we're going to add, for my keyword outline, I'll just say, youth group, and it matters because we don't want them to hide their faith. Okay, so that's our amplification. Okay, so that finishes week 2 arrangement. Okay, so we've just added in the one more component to our outline. You're going to go through the order of development because each essay, you're starting from scratch. So they'll go through and we'll say, okay, let's brainstorm. You've got your issue. Let's brainstorm your 3 proofs. Let's brainstorm your sub-proofs. Now let's look at our conclusion. Who are we talking to? What's our thesis? What's our summary? Now let's go back and brainstorm our introduction. So this is something you'll think through. Starting in essay 4, we're going to know who our amplification is, who we're talking to, before we pick our exordium. So let's ask ourselves, is the verse Esther 4:14 the most applicable exordium we could do to catch the attention of the youth group students? Okay, I think it probably fits well for such a time as this. You've been called to this nation, to this anti-Christ environment, to stand up and be a light. Okay, so you can tie those together. Okay, then you're going to go into week 3, elocution, and this is simply adding your figure of speech. So essay 4's figure of speech is your parallel phrases. Okay, this one is actually a little bit more complicated. I would say this is the most difficult figure of speech for the students to master, okay? So be prepared to give them help from this.
So parallelism 1, remember, was the last essay, and that was where we had a similar structure and a series of words. this is a similar structure in a series of phrases or clauses. So instead of just using words like killed, beheaded, executed, so on, we're going to use phrases. So we're going to look at a phrase or clause in our outline, or even sometimes this might be easier, like after they've written their rough draft. So sometimes I would have my students like, okay, write that out in sentences and then look at your sentence, because it might be hard for them if they just have like not complete sentence keywords. Might be harder for them to find a phrase or a clause.
That's a great idea.
So I would tell them, if you need to write out your rough draft and then add in this elocution portion, it might come a little bit easier. You can add it to a sentence where you find a phrase or clause in your writing that you can expand on by adding the parallel structure, or you can rewrite existing ones, such as your proof. So this is probably the easiest way to do it, is look at your proofs, and we can put it in there. That's gonna be the easiest spot to do it. So we could pick one, like she lied. She lied to the king. She withheld information. So she's gonna be doing, it's still gonna be in the same part of speech though, our phrasing. So you see what I mean?
She
Like
lied, she withheld.
She acted different, where she,
Is it really the subject?
I don't,
Right.
I don't think.
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it can be just short
This is where it can
phrases.
get confusing.
It is. This
She lied,
is
she
tricky.
withheld, she, what's your third one?
Deceived.
Deceived,
Yeah.
there you go.
Mhm.
Very good, we got there.
There. So that could be our parallelism with phrases or clauses. And then does that make sense?
Parse those phrases, is that what?
No.
No,
You
so
don't
then
have
this
That
would be,
because those are the same.
This is simple, so this is the same
Yeah.
sentence structure, this is subject, verb,
VIs.
Yeah. SVI.
And is this just you put this somewhere in?
Anywhere in the
Anywhere.
essay. All your figures of speech, you do them one time, anywhere in the essay. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And so, yeah, you can make this as complex or as simple as you want. But in order to be a parallel phrases, it has to have at least 2 words, okay, in the structure. So this is much simpler here than doing a whole sentence.
What week is this?
Essay 4.
Four.
Essay 4.
Essay 4.
So this is our 3rd figure of speech to learn. So for essay 4, you're gonna come home, you've already got your outline. You're gonna add in your parallelism, 1 word. You're gonna add in your strong verb, and then you're gonna add in your parallel phrases, okay? So now I'm gonna rewrite these over here. Instead of saying she lied, she could get caught, or she acted differently, right? You're saying we're putting it right there?
well, it could all
Or
go
all under she lied.
under, yeah.
Okay, so she lied. So you can add this in, like, I probably wouldn't add it in the introduction, because I would keep it simple so you can see the 3 phrases. I'd probably add it in my proof 1 paragraph. And say she lied, she withheld, and she deceived. Okay? And so you've got all 3 of those in your sentence. So we added that into your outline. Or I do like what Alicia said, after you write your essay, you already have your phrases. It's easier to see where you could duplicate a phrase at that point.
And you were saying earlier, like,
For this,
what's in parentheses, y'all?
where?
Prepositional phrase?
Prepositional phrases.
There we go, yes.
Thank you. I don't know
Yes,
why I love that, but
prepositional
that would
phrases
be
can be
another
the
good place.
easiest way.
Yeah. So it doesn't have to be in there, like it can be anywhere in the paper. It doesn't. That's what I was thinking. Okay.
You know how a pastor, when he gives, like, he's got his sermon and he gives his 3 main points, they like to have them worded the exact same way?
Yeah.
Those are
I like
parallel
that.
phrases.
Okay.
So that's what I tell the students. If you can write your 3 main proofs as parallel phrases so that you have that continuity as you go through your paper, just like you would get in a sermon, that's going to be really powerful in your paper.
Okay.
Sometimes your proofs are difficult to write that way. Like these kind of are difficult to work in together, but some of them are easier. So just different ideas. Okay.
Can I ask a quick question about that? And I get it's the most complicated one, but is it essentially just so that you sound more poetic or
Yes.
more fancy?
Elocution. It's all about how your words enhance the reading of your paper.
Because for me, that one in particular sounds like you're like simplifying. Like you're like, before you're like, oh, let's use a lot of different words to describe all the things, and here it's like, let's pick the same way to say this over and over again. So
You're
it's
just
just
trying
about
to
the
get your
rhythm.
point across.
Yes, rhythm and
Okay.
repetition, so that's,
Okay.
where would rhythm and repetition be
Okay.
beneficial
Okay.
in your paper?
Yeah.
Would be a question to ask yourself, yeah.
Yeah.
And guys, don't stress over this. Like, I know it seems like a lot, but they'll be like, you're gonna add parallelism. This is what this is. And so you're like doing the same essay, and now you have parallelism.
And you're like, our kids have gone through this like 5 times and they can be ready for it, not like us.
I
who,
just
like,
don't know.
My first time.
In your email would be like, this is the poem of the week, right? Or something like that.
Yeah, yeah, like in my
It'll say that
emails.
elocution week.
Yeah.
But I will be this year. I will.
And there are videos that go with each lesson that I always link in my emails to the Cersei Institute. So like when you got your book, it has like, well, everyone has the same password. But I link those videos in case you want to even, if your kid forgets when they get home, you can just let them watch the video and they walk through the whole thing again. You can watch the video. Not like. Does anybody have any questions?
About essay 4.
I mean, we can probably like wrap it up. So you kind of get the idea. Same steps every essay. There's, from here on out, a worksheet to help them with the elocution, arrangement, invention, and then the arrangement stage is always where we're adding to the outline. So,
Yeah, and back up, so the invention is always when we're working on the Annie chart and our worksheets to Annie chart. Arrangement's always the order of development and the outline. And then elocution is always the figures of speech and the final essay.
Elocution is expressing it.
Yes.
Sorry, that's just what I had
Gives
last.
it the flair.
Okay, okay.
Yep.
That's where
So-
IW comes in,
Yeah.
makes it a little bit, the smallest little
Yeah.
percentage.
Does anybody have any questions overall? We're about halfway through the essays, so that gives you, a good idea. So know there's a lot more to, to come, but you will take it one step at a time.
thank you for doing that.
This is
Yeah.
excellent.
Yeah.
Always good.